Well, it's been a very long time since I've showed my face here on this channel and made a video, but today I'm doing just that. So today I want to kind of reintroduce myself back to this channel. Previously, I had made Legends of Runeterra and Marvel Snap content, mainly those two games, but making a big change in my life. Clearly, I had a child about a year and a couple months ago, so that has hindered most of the content that I've been able to make. But I want to kind of come back into this and just do it for fun. Really, just try to have some a space where I can share some cool deck lists, cool lists, etc. about two new games that I'm playing. So I want to talk to you guys about those two new games, and if you guys are interested, for anyone out there who's tuning back into this channel, feel free to follow along. But I'm going to be talking about Star Wars Unlimited, the new hot card game by Fantasy Flight Games. It's a trading card game. And I'll be talking about Star Wars Shatterpoint, which is a miniatures game. This channel will mostly focus on Unlimited with some Shatterpoint kind of thrown in there secondarily. Shatterpoint is definitely a game that I love. It's just a lot harder to make content for, but we'll get there. So let's go with Star Wars Unlimited first. So if you have been living under a rock and you're a fan of card games, then you probably haven't heard of Star Wars Unlimited, but if you're like the rest of us, it's been constantly on our feed. It's been talked about by, videos, content creators. It's been talked about by pretty much everyone. If you go to a friendly local game store, I'm sure you saw it. The product is out there and it's great. So it is for those who don't know, collectible card game where you play as heroes from a galaxy far, far away, etc. And here's some examples of the cards just that I'm showing from their site, just to have something in the background of this video. But essentially how the game works, and I'm just going to kind of give you a brief overview of what the game is and my opinion so far, having played, maybe 20, 25 games of it so far and have bought a few boxes. So how the game works is really around a hero. So you will pick a leader to play as your main character. It's a little bit like Magic Commander for those who are familiar. So you'll have a leader on the board. The leader will offer two symbols to your deck building. So if you look at Luke here on the left, he offers blue and white or heroism, so they each have a different name. I'm just going to go by colors, and then red for Darth Vader and black for villainy, right? So white and black are just good guys, bad guys, and then the other four categories break down into separate things like aggression, command, etc. So we're just going to go by colors. There's four colors. There's green, yellow, blue, red, and those colors determine your deck building. So you will have a hero, and you'll pick a base. A base is a typically 30 health objective that your opponent must kill to win the game. So your base will also provide a color. So that is how deck building is made. So if you're interested in making a deck in this game, you would pick a leader, you would pick a base, you would have three colors offered to you by that, and those are the cards that you can build your deck around. The cool thing about Star Wars Unlimited is you can actually build your deck around any cards you want. It's just if you play a card that doesn't match one of the symbols that you have to pay 2 additional resources per symbol you're missing. So if you're playing a blue-green hero deck, you could take a red and yellow villain card, and you would just have to pay additional resources to play that card. So it's kind of a neat way to, kind of hone in, and you pretty much need to play these cards if you want to be competitive because things are going to cost more, but there are a few decks out there that are sneaking some really cool ways to actually bring out cards that don't fit their color scheme, which is really fun. So like I said, you're essentially playing a leader. Your opponent's playing a leader, and you have to blow up their opposing base that has roughly 30 hit points. And how it'll work is you'll have cards like these. So these are unit cards. There's actually 2 different arenas, they call them in this game. I like to think of this game mostly as like a Hearthstone and Star Wars Destiny mix, if anyone's familiar with those games. What happens is units have a attack and a health and a cost similar to Hearthstone. They come in exhausted and they ready at the end of the round, but if you are familiar with Star Wars Destiny, which is another trading card game that involves dice, there is actions back and forth. So instead of I take my entire turn and then my opponent takes his entire turn, you're trading back one action at a time, back and forth. So that's kind of how the game is going to go down. But there's 2 arenas, as I was saying, which are obviously ground battles and space battles. So if you have a unit in space, granted a starship, right? That starship typically can't attack anything on the ground, and it will fight other things in space. Same for a ground unit. But both units can attack the same base. So essentially you can go either avenue. You have 2 different lanes to kind of try to fight down to blow up your opponent's base. And that's the general premise of the game. There are, of course, events that you would play, which would not be a unit on the board, but have an action that you would take. There are, of course, upgrades. You got to have lightsabers if you have Jedi and Sith. So things like that are also in the game. and just a bunch of your favorite heroes. So, I mean, if you're a big fan of Star Wars like myself, I always have been, hence why the original podcast I ran in this whole channel is named Twin Suns, um, then you would obviously like the setting of this card game. But I will say my initial thoughts have been very positive. The game is extremely simple. I think it's a lot more simple than I thought it was going to be going into it, but it has a really good job of layering a lot of really cool depth in the game. You're making some really important decisions, even though you're maybe not making the most decisions all the time, but you're making some very important decisions every single turn. Just like in Hearthstone, where you gain a mana every turn or play a land every turn in Magic, right? There's clearly a resource system because it's a card game. So what you'll do is you will draw 2 cards every turn, and then from your entire hand, you pick 1 card to put down face down as a resource. Additionally, to start the game, you'll draw 6 cards and pick 2 cards to put down as resources. So the decision-making process of you having your hand out, how many cards you have in your hand, and then determining which card to choose to put down is like a really in-depth strategy decision that I think you can kind of show off your skill in that area. It's something that a lot of games don't typically do. You know, if you draw a land, you have a land, etc., right? Or you just gain a resource every turn. But I think it's a really cool twist on the resource generation. I loved Legends of Runeterra for that reason, having spell mana that you could bank if you didn't spend mana on your actual cards. But I think this is a really fun twist because it makes you really make a hard decision about what cards you want to put in your resource row, which you can essentially never get back. There's very, very few ways to interact with that resource row. So I think that is a huge skill expression portion of the game. And then since it's action based, you take an action, they take an action. Sequencing becomes everything, right? It's not like Hearthstone where you can just do all your actions and go. It is more like Legend of Terror. You're going back and forth, taking one turn, taking a action, take an action, take an action, etc. So if you need to, make sure you attack with this space unit before it gets blown up by their space unit, you need to make sure to do that first before the other thing happens. Or any plethora of events. They have multiple targets on the board that you need to deal with, but they only can activate one at a time. So if you can find a way to deal with multiple at the same time, that's a huge way to push your skill in that situation. So I've been very impressed. I think it's a very fun game, very straightforward, but just really good. I think Blizzard always talked about the company Blizzard always talked about the idea of having a game be extremely easy to learn but extremely hard to master. And I think so far this game is hitting that for me, and I love that in games. I think it's doing it a very good job in that range. So that's Star Wars Unlimited. I'll definitely be making video. My plan for this channel going forward is I typically like janky, weird decks. If you followed from Legends of Runeterra at all, you probably know this. I'll definitely be making some deck videos, just highlighting kind of what this deck is doing, a weird deck, or maybe a popular deck that's out there. I'll try to break down for you guys to say, okay, this is my opinion on the deck, how to counter it, etc. And I'll definitely be doing reviews of new cards. They already had when they launched this game 3 sets already made, I believe. So I'll be definitely jumping in and reviewing new spoilers coming out for the next season. This is just the launch of the first set. The next set has already been announced, and I think they're aiming for around July, June or July. So you can look forward to that coming up. But yeah, there's a lot of good content out there for this game. I'm going to try to jump in and make some as well. Have a lot of fun. I don't know how many actual videos of gameplay I'll be showing with webcams and everything set up, but I know my good friends at the Golden Dice podcast. I'll link them below. They do really good actual gameplay, and they have their whole podcast talking about this game as well. So they're friends of ours. Definitely check those guys out as well if you want even more content on SWU. That's the short for this game. But hopefully I can just add some fun janky decks I can get to discuss on here and have a good time breaking down some new cards. So I'm going to move on over to Shatterpoint and tell you guys a little bit about this game as well. So here we have Star Wars Shatterpoint. So this is a miniatures game. So take a step away from the card games, which I have a really big history in card games. I also have a really fun history in miniature games. I played Warhammer growing up, like most kids, with older brothers at least. I played War Machine on a more competitive level, and that was always a blast. And I've played HeroClix and Marvel Crisis Protocol, a bunch of other miniature games, but more on a casual scale. This I'm definitely doing as a hobbying for fun, casual type of vibe. I haven't gone to tournaments yet. I'm probably going to go to a few just to be able to use all of the models that I've put so much hard work painting into. But this game is a miniatures-based game, so I'll show you some images here from their site. Essentially, you buy a box. The miniatures come not assembled. You assemble them with glue. You build your miniatures. If you're not familiar with this type of game, it's a very popular thing and around all over the place. But you build your miniatures and then you fight. The really, really cool part about Shatterpoint is twofold. The first is that this is supposed to be a small skirmish battle. So this is not your Warhammer bring a bajillion units and have a massive fight, right? It's not that style of battle. This is supposed to be like a hit and run type mission style. So there's different mission objectives that you're going to be playing as, and all you take are 2 squads, and your squads consist of a leader, a secondary unit, and a supporting unit. So you have 3 essentially units, but a lot of times the supporting units will be 2 things. So in this example on this picture, up on this top level here, you have Asajj Ventress as a leader, Gar Saxon in the middle here from the Clone Wars as a secondary unit, and then 2 Mandalorian troopers, commandos, as a supporting unit. So that's kind of how you build your list. You build your list of 4 characters, essentially. We have to bring 2 of those. You bring 2 squads. And at tournaments, you typically will bring 4 different squads and interchange. You have to play each squad once, but you could change them with whatever partner you want. And essentially, how it'll work is you set up across the board from each other, and there'll be an objective marker, and each unit has 2 actions on their activation. They can move, attack, they can do force pushes, force jumps, they can use their sniper rifle, they could do stuff with the objective, etc. Right? And there's a ton of synergy that's coming out for different cards, and it's a really, really exciting game to actually play. Takes a long time, right? Star Wars Unlimited is 5 to 15 to maybe 20-minute games tops. This is, 2-3 hours, especially if you're new. There's a lot to learn for this type of game, but it's super fun. On top of that, what's really cool about it, in my opinion, is when you're introducing someone to a miniatures game, the main thing, I think it can be extremely overwhelming when you set them with an entire army and they have to figure out all the rules for these units and all the rules for enemy units, etc. Shatterpoint does a really cool job of keeping it small, but beyond that, instead of activating all of your stuff at the same time and then your opponent activates all their stuff at the same time, what actually happens is you have a deck of cards that represent one card that represents one unit, and you will draw a card from that deck, and that is who you're then activating that turn. Of course, there's some ways to manipulate that, as in all good game design will try to manipulate every aspect of the game they can. But essentially what you can do is activate one character at a time. So that lets you really pick up a card. All right, I'm going to activate Anakin Skywalker. Let me read what he does. I'm going to move and attack. And then get you really familiar with the game as you go through it that way, instead of saying, hey, here's your entire army, activate all of it, and then I'll activate my entire army. So this has probably been my favorite game to introduce to new players. Super fun to just kind of show them, let them just have the models, move the models on their, take objectives. If they want to paint, they can paint. If they want to just play, they can use my stuff, etc. But yeah, I have a bunch of terrain and super fun game. Content for this will probably be just a lot of reveals happen in this game where they're revealing new units and new things. I'll probably do some content around those, just like in Star Wars Unlimited, where I'm showing off kind of the new cards coming up. I want to talk about what I think about those units. So I'll be doing some content around that. Maybe a few painting streams, painting videos. I'm not the best painter at all, so the main reason I would do that is to actually get advice from those who are good at painting. But I do enjoy it. I have a good time doing it. And then maybe a little bit of like a battle report situation. Now, I'm not going to record 3-hour games and post them on here for you guys, but I would love to maybe do like a quick battle report of saying, okay, here is what went down. This is the list I played. This is the list they played, etc. Or even a tournament report if I go to one. And I'll do that same type of thing for SWU. So this is a new stage for me, guys. I haven't made content for physical games. I've made in a long time. I was with the Golden Dice guys for a little bit, making content about Star Wars Destiny, a dice card game. But that was truly handled by Jack over there. He handled all of the content there. I just showed up a little bit here and there. So I don't plan on busting out the webcam and getting a ton of footage of gameplay, but I really plan on just kind of giving my opinion on new cards, new decks, new lists, etc. So hopefully you guys will stick around for some of that content. If you enjoy it, I would appreciate leaving a subscription. If you're interested in these 2 things, subscribe to the channel. You can stay tuned. I'll definitely have more content coming up on those 2 games. And if you have any questions about why the transition or what I'm interested about these games, drop it in the comments below. I always respond. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you later.